happening, family? Welcome back to the channel. I am DL, here with another movie review. Today we're going to be talking about the 10th installment of the Fast and Furious franchise, 11 if you count the spin-off. We're going to be talking about Fast X. Yeah, I think this is the first time I'm actually talking about Fast and Furious on my channel. Cool beats. So, without further ado, let us get into Fast X. Just to let you guys know ahead of time, this may be a longer review because I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. So, sit tight, fasten your seatbelts, because we have a lot to discuss. You guys know I had to say fasten your seatbelts. Come on now. Come on now. It was right there. But anyway, let's talk about Fast 10. Well, actually, before we start talking about Fast 10, I should give you guys some context of how my history is with the franchise. Um, I am a Fast and Furious fan. I'm unapologetically a fan of this franchise. I enjoy these movies. I know that this franchise is dumb. You know, it's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's all that type of stuff. Yeah, I know this franchise is dumb. But I don't go to these movies for a really complicated plot and, you know, a really good story and well-written characters. I mean, there's enough there character-wise and story-wise where, like, you know, I can follow it, but I mainly go to these movies for the over-the-top action set pieces, you know? I don't expect too much from this franchise. I see it as dumb fun. With the original Fast and Furious movie, I thought it was pretty solid. A lot of people compare it to Point Break, and I definitely see some similarities with that. But yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable street racing movie. You know, I thought it was pretty good. However, when it comes to the franchise as a whole, I have not enjoyed all of them. 2, 3, and 4, I am not really the biggest fan of those movies. They're kind of rocky for me. I really didn't start really enjoying this franchise until Fast 5 came out. I think for a lot of people, Fast 5 is their favorite in the franchise. And that was the start of the transition from these movies being street racing movies to now they're becoming heist films, you know. And Fast 5 was really, really enjoyable, especially with The Rock coming into this franchise. Definitely brought some energy to the films that we haven't seen before. For me, Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, and Furious 7, those three are my top favorite movies in this franchise, you know. And I personally felt like they could have ended the franchise after 7, you know, especially because 7 was the last film that Paul Walker filmed before he tragically passed away. And I thought they did a really good send-off to his character in 7, so I thought they could have ended it there. But Furious 7 made $1 billion, so of course you got to continue the franchise, right? So after that point, I started to become less and less invested in this franchise because, you know, 8, the spin-off Hobbs and Shaw and the Knife movie, I was very lukewarm to underwhelmed with those movies. It just didn't feel right after the 7th movie, especially with them still acknowledging Paul Walker's existence, but not really. And of course, you know, the biggest problem that people have with the movies is the physics with the cars and, you know, the action scenes that, you know, these cars are, you know, doing these crazy stunts and these characters are getting out of these really dangerous situations without a scratch on them, or they're doing superhuman stuff in the film, like, you know, Vin Diesel's character Dom lifting up cars and all that stuff. So for a lot of people, especially when it came to F9, that seemed to be the breaking point for people. A lot of people thought that F9 was the worst in the franchise. I personally don't feel that way, because I personally think that the first few Fast and Furious movies were worse, but I definitely felt like F9 was a low point in the franchise, and I honestly I felt like these movies could just stop, now because like it's starting to overstate its welcome. So when it came to Fast 10, um, I was still somewhat interested in seeing how they'll end the Fast and Furious movies, but at the same time, I just couldn't wait for them to end. At first they were going to have this be a two-part finale where they'll have Fast 10 and Fast 11, but now recently, since Universal saw an early cut of Fast 10, they were so enthusiastic about it that they asked Vin Diesel to create three movies, have a three-part finale, and I was just like, oh, why do we have to draw this out even longer? Like it's gonna be a Hobbit situation where it's like they didn't have to make it into three movies. It would have been more tight if it just sticked with two. So I'm worried that it's going to be the same situation with this. Um, and I've already been kind of unsure about how I feel about Vin Diesel becoming a main producer on these Fast and Furious movies because like he's one of the linchpins of why this franchise has been going on for so long. And of course, making Dom's character such a Mary Sue, it really just annoyed me. But regardless of that, even though I am starting to get a little tired of the franchise, I'm still invested in seeing how they'll finish off this finale. I'm still invested in these characters enough where I do want to see what happens. Um, so, another thing, Justin Lin, who directed all the main Fast and Furious movies and who recently directed F9, decided to leave the project because of creative differences that he had with the studios and Vin Diesel, and also having trouble behind the scenes of people's professionalism, specifically pointing towards Vin because apparently he had some behind the scenes issues with them, so he just decided to leave, which is very unfortunate because Justin Lin was the person that really helped to reinvigorate the franchise with his set of movies. So it was very disappointing that he couldn't end off the franchise. So instead, they decided to get Louis Leterrier, who was the director of the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie and the Transporters films with Jason Statham. And I think he's a solid director. I don't think he's great, but I think he'll at least get the job done. Because let's be honest, with any of the filmmakers that come into a Fast and Furious movie, they rarely are able to make their stamp on these movies. Most of them feel the same as far as direction. So, I'm sure that Lewis will do a fine job. So overall, I thought Fast 10, I enjoy it fine. I thought it was pretty solid. I did have a good time with it. In my opinion, I do think this is an improvement from Fate of the Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and F9. But I still don't think the movie is great. I still think it still has a lot of the issues that the Fast and Furious movies had in the latter half of the of the films. I still think there's still quite a bit of issues, and you still feel like there's certain things that they're doing over and over again that feels very played out as far as the story, the plot, the characters, and just the crazy physics with the cars. But it's more the same. Like if you're already invested in this franchise, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy Fast 10. Like it plays similar beats that you've seen in most of these films by now. And I do feel like this is a little bit more coherent than F9. But yeah, I'm still kind of conflicted. Conflicted is probably the best word to say it. So we go to these movies, of course, for the action sequences and the car stunts and stuff like that, and I enjoyed a good amount of them in this film. And I'm glad that it wasn't as over the top as it was in F9, because F9, that they were just doing so many ridiculous stuff in that movie. It was hard to feel any stakes with that. They freaking win the space. Like it doesn't get any crazier than that. So I'm glad to say that the action in this movie wasn't as crazy as it was in F9. I think we went back to the physics of maybe Furious 7 maybe Fate the Furious, so it's not as over the top. But still, you have those crazy car stunts like, Dom's car bringing down two helicopters. And honestly, my favorite action scene in the entire movie is, of course, the giant rolling bomb in Rome. I thought that was a very entertaining sequence, probably the highlight action set piece. And of course, if you see in the trailers, you see the sequence with John Cena's character Jacob and little Brian riding in their custom-made truck that shoots rocket launchers. That was an entertaining scene. Even though I am kind of conflicted, though, that little Brian, who's a kid, helped to shoot those rocket launchers at people. So the kid killed some people with the rocket launcher. Uh, don't know how to feel about that, but still entertaining scene, nonetheless. Um, and there is some cool like hand-to-hand combat stuff, like we also saw in the trailer Charlize Theron's character Cypher fighting with Michelle Rodriguez's character Letty. That was entertaining enough, and yeah, I just overall I do enjoy these car sequences. Like, do they defy the laws of physics? Absolutely, but at least they're well choreographed. They're exciting. The only thing that still is kind of an issue for me is that I just want to see characters get hurt. There's these crazy, dangerous situations that are going on. And it's like we barely see these characters get a scratch on them, especially Dom. Dom has become a superhero in these movies, and I just wish that we just saw some more vulnerability with them as far as them getting in the danger or getting in the fights or doing these crazy car stunts. Like, I just wish we got back to that, because like in the first few movies there were crazy car stunts, but you actually saw danger, and it's like we've gotten so far from that. What I will say is probably the most entertaining thing about this movie, I'm sure a lot of people have already talked about him, Jason Momoa as the main villain of this movie. Dante, honestly, he's probably the most interesting villain I've seen in a Fast and Furious movie. For most of the Fast and Furious films, most of them have been, like pre-Bond villains, pretty much. Probably the only ones that really stood out to me as far as villains are Cypher, Luke Evans' character, Owen Shaw. I guess I could put Idris Elba's character from Hobbs and Shaw, and I did like Owen before he turned into a good guy. But everyone else just seemed very generic to me. But like Jason Momoa, like it felt like he was the only one that knew how ridiculous and over the top these movies are. So he barely took anything seriously, but it somehow worked for me. It's almost like Jason just watched the Joker's performance in like The Dark Knight or 2016 Suicide Squad and was like, I'm gonna do that. And it was just so entertaining to watch when everything just felt so serious and melodramatic. Here comes Jason Momoa coming in being all crazy and over the top and witty. Now I get if Jason's performance may turn off some people because they're used to seeing Jason being a more masculine, character, serious character, especially coming off of Game of Thrones. But like me knowing how Jason Momoa is in real life, if you actually watch him in interviews, he is a masculine guy, but like he's very playful as well. He's very jokey. He seems like a very much a dude, bro. Very similar to how he is in the Aquaman movies. So it's just nice to see Jason try to do something new as far as roles. But yeah, I really enjoyed him. There's definitely were some weird scenes that they had with him. Like there is a scene where he's painting the toenails of corpses and talking to them. That was very jarring. So if you're not into stuff like that, this may not be for you. But for me, I thought it was cool. He's wearing these colorful outfits and being all flamboyant, maybe a little fruity here and there. But like I don't know, it just worked for me. And of course, the interaction with all the characters, all the family, I actually am still invested in, the family, the dynamic. Is there bad dialogue? Is there cheesy, corny moments? Absolutely. But, there is a good amount of it that I still feel is endearing. you know, and like the banter between all these characters are just done so well at this point, because they've been working with each other for so many years throughout all these movies. It does feel like they are genuinely a family. Even though the writing for them could be better, I'll admit that, but I can't deny just seeing this multi-ethnic, cast work off each other so well. It's just so cool. And even the newcomers I thought were pretty solid. Brie Larson, Alan Richardson, and I'm gonna say her name wrong, Daniela Melchior. I thought they were pretty good additions to this franchise. I'm not gonna spoil who some of the characters are and who they're affiliated with, but you would know that they try to connect these characters to other characters from the past. So it's more of that, and there's some connections that these new characters have to others that I kind of had to suspend my disbelief on, but I thought they were pretty solid additions. I will say specifically, if you guys have followed my channel, you guys know that I am not a fan of Brie Larson, but I gotta be honest with you guys, I actually liked her in this movie. Like, no joke, I did not expect that. She actually had some personality. She worked off the other characters really well. You know, I I actually thought she did a good job in a Fast and Furious movie out of all things. So yeah, I actually liked her. If she put in this amount of effort with the Captain Marvel stuff, I actually would like her a lot more. I did not expect that, but yeah, I actually did like Brie Larson and Daniela Melchior. I will say, um, this must be the year for her because she was just in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and and I did really like her as Ratcatcher in the Suicide Squad. So it's nice to see her in more roles, and she fit along pretty well with this fast family. Now, there is some issues that I do have with it. One of the things, while I do enjoy a lot of the characters in this movie, I also feel like there is too many characters. There's too many subplots going on. It's like there's so many characters that they're bringing back from the previous movies for this finale, and then they're adding new characters, and it just feels like a good amount of them is lost in the shuffle. You have this one plot point where Dom is trying to chase after Dante, and then you have another plot point where Han, Tej, Roman, and Ramsey is doing their thing, and then Cypher and Letty is captured in a prison and they're trying to escape. That's another plot point. Then you have another plot point with John Cena's Jacob, helping little Dom get to I don't know, the rendezvous point. And it's just there's too much going on, and I felt like the middle part of this movie, it just felt like it was dragging a little bit because they kept going from one thing to the next. So one of the detriments of this franchise overall is just I feel like they're afraid to kill off any characters. Like I feel like if some characters, if they kill them off or had certain characters stay dead that were dead in the first place, like Han, because Han doesn't do that much in this movie. It almost felt like kind of pointless to bring him back because you also thought that they were going to do some payoff with Jason Statham's character, Deckard, and you thought they'll settle that somewhat in F9, but they didn't do that. So you thought, oh, maybe they'll settle that between the two in Fast 10, and they don't really do that either. So it's like, what's the point of having him? Now, there is another surprise character that comes in this movie that has ties with Han that will most likely see payoff with the next two movies, but like it's just a lot going on. It's just too much happening. And then with John Cena as Jacob, wow, I do think he was a lot better in this than he was in F9, because in F9 he was way too serious. Like I didn't fully buy him being this serious action star, but like in this they actually let John Cena be himself. He's a lot more funny and he has a little more witty banter with little Brian, so he felt more natural. But like even then, like he doesn't have too much to do outside of the little Brian stuff, so it's like I don't know, it just feels like they're bringing all these characters in so they can figure out some sort of huge climax to do at the very end. Which, if that's what you're trying to do, I hope they find room for all these characters that they're bringing in. Because like I'm pretty sure at some point, um, I'll say right now, like the Tokyo Drift crew that appeared in F9, they're not in this, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna show up again in either Fast 11 or Fast 12 if we get that far. And I can think of some other characters from the previous movies that I wouldn't be shocked if they try to bring them back too and make them this big old climax with all these characters, Avengers Endgame level. I feels like that's what they're setting up. You know, and it also doesn't help the fact that this movie has three different cliffhangers. Three different cliffhangers. You like so I don't know. And it's like two of them, like you could tell, like they try to end off on such a dramatic note on like, oh, what's gonna happen? Oh, that's so shocking that they did this. But like in the back of your mind, you're thinking it's probably a fake out, because if you've been watching this franchise for as long as I have, you guys know that nobody stays dead. You know, like they somehow resurrect people back from the dead, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, like Han's death. So it's just like I don't understand, like why they feel the need to fill this movie with so many plot points and so many characters at one time. And then one of the biggest issues that I have, after Furious 7, is just the handling that they have for Paul Walker's character, Brian. So it seems like they're afraid to incorporate Brian in these movies because they don't want to seem disrespectful to Paul Walker. But it's just like with events that's been happening after 7, especially with stuff that happens with Dom, with him, with his long lost brother coming back, and being at family barbecues and like all this other stuff, like you would feel like Brian would be more involved with all this stuff. And it's just like it feels hollow that Brian is not there when all these important situations happen with the family. But then in certain scenes, like they would have like pictures of Paul Walker's character like up on the wall, and then you hear like the "See You Again" song from Furious 7 play in the background, this instrumental, making it seem like Brian is dead, but he's not dead. They acknowledge he's still there. So it's just like I'm tired of them treating Brian as some sort of like spiritual entity. It doesn't feel right. And if you're going to bring back all these characters from the previous movies, it especially will feel wrong by the time we get to the very ending of this franchise with Fast 11 or Fast 12, when they have their big climactic thing, whatever they're going to do. And I'm pretty sure they're going to have all these characters, work together in some way, shape, or form. It just won't feel right that Paul Walker is not there. So my thought process is, people probably won't agree with me on this, but like I just feel like they could just either kill off Brian's character or do what they did in Furious 7 when they helped film the rest of Brian's scenes. Get Paul Walker's brothers and do some sort of deep fake thing. And he doesn't have to be in the entire movie, but I think he should at least be in a couple of scenes just to fully acknowledge that he's there without making it seem like it's weird, like we can't actually show him. For me, it just feels so disrespectful the way they're doing it. And I'm sure people like have similar thoughts of how, they didn't want to do a deep fake stuff for Chadwick Boseman for Black Panther, but I feel like this is a different situation, especially because of the rules have been broken so many times of who stays dead and who stays alive in these movies. Like, I don't feel like that's out of the realm of possibility for them to do it. But I don't know. I just felt like it was just so wrong with how they handled Brian. That's why I felt like the franchise should have ended at 7. But overall, I did enjoy this movie. I did have a good time with it. I did turn my brain off a little bit. There were certain parts where I couldn't turn my brain off because of how melodramatic the story is, and the dialogue was not very good in certain places, and just the overcrowdedness of all the cast in this movie. I still feel like that's an issue. But I'm still invested in this franchise. Like, I may seem dumb for being that way, but like I do like these movies. I do enjoy them. I do enjoy most of the characters. I like the car stunts. I like the direction they went into. I know people miss that, that these movies were mainly about street racing, and part of me does miss the street racing aspect. They do have some street racing in this movie, so they do try to bring that element back, but I get that people are not digging the super spy superhero thing, over the top stuff that they're doing with these movies. That's completely understandable, but like, I think that's good to help keep the franchise fresh. It feels like at this point it's time for the franchise to end. You know, there I am curious with all the the cliffhangers and surprise appearances and the setup that they're doing for this. I am interested to see where that stuff will go, but I don't know. I just don't want them to draw it out any longer than they need to. They're already thinking about doing a female spin-off with this, and I'm just like, why? If you want to do a female spin-off, you should have done that a long time ago. Like, I don't think anybody will care about a female spin-off after the finale trilogy will be over. And I'm still conflicted about them doing a three-part finale. So we'll figure out we'll see what happens, with the box office and how successful it is. So if it does end up making a lot of money and they commit to a three-parter, I will go see it. But I feel like I will be more enthusiastic if they just stick with the two-parter and this franchise ends at 11. But regardless, I do like the Fast family. I like their chemistry and banter. I have a good time with the car stunts, even though they're over the top. I thought Jason Momoa as Dante is probably my favorite villain of the Fast and Furious franchise. So I will give Fast X a B minus. Some might think that I'm grading it a little too high, but that's how I feel. So those are my thoughts on Fast X. What did you guys think about it? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was okay? How does this compare to the other Fast and Furious movies? Are you even a fan of the Fast and Furious films? Are you even going to go see this movie? Are you excited for this two-part, maybe three-part finale? Are you up for them doing a three-part finale, or you just want to stick with the two-part finale? Comment your thoughts down below and let me know. You know what? I'm gonna go back and review the other Fast and Furious movies before Fast 11 comes out. Because I do want to go back and revisit them and see how I feel about them, getting the full context of where the franchise is at this point. So tune in for those when it comes out. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this review, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And please hit the bell if you want to be notified on future videos I'll be doing. But that's all I have for you Fast and Furious fans. How many of you are out there? And I will see you guys later. Talk to you guys later. And remember to live your life at a quarter mile at a time.